The city had just begun to wake. Dawn was painting its light across glass towers, across spotless streets where the wealthy lived, and across alleys where those with nothing slept on cardboard. It was a city of sharp contrasts, but none shone brighter or heavier than the life of Alexander Vane, the man newspapers loved to call the golden billionaire. He had it all: estates on the hills, businesses scattered across continents, and a reputation for driving the rarest machines on Earth. His favorite was his black, custom-built Hyperion Phantom, a car worth more than some people could earn in 3 lifetimes. To Alexander, that car was more than metal, it was his pride, his reflection, his escape from the cold pressure of boardrooms. But this morning, pride had turned into humiliation. The Phantom refused to reach its destination. It wasn't just any refusal. It was a cruel silence after the car's ignition hummed, stuttered, and then gave nothing but a hollow cough. Alexander had tried again, jaw tight, fingers pressing the start button harder as though his wealth could command the machine. Nothing. His personal driver, Hugo, fumbled nervously with the hood. He was sweating in his black suit, while the billionaire stood beside him in a storm of rage. "Sir, I think it's an electrical failure. Maybe the wiring. Maybe?" Alexander snapped, his voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "Do you know what today is, Hugo?" The driver swallowed. "The investors' meeting, sir." "Yes," Alexander said, looking at the dead car as if it had betrayed him. "A meeting worth $500 million in negotiations, and my Phantom chooses this morning to collapse like a peasant's donkey." Hugo shifted, helpless. "We can call the company service team." "I already did," Alexander growled, tapping his gold wristwatch impatiently. "They said 2 hours. 2 hours?" His voice echoed across the road. "By then, the meeting will be over. My reputation finished." In the silence that followed, Alexander's frustration spilled into something darker. For all his wealth, for all the engineers at his fingertips, no one seemed able to fix what was wrong with the car now. It was as if the Phantom had mocked his empire, proving that money could not bend everything to his will. He hit the hood with his fist, the sound ringing through the quiet air. Anyone fix this damn problem?" His voice cracked, raw with desperation, carrying farther than he knew. All the way down the winding road that led under the city bridge, where another world existed, one he had never stepped into. And there, half asleep on a pile of old tires, a boy stirred. He rubbed his eyes, the voice echoing in his ears, a cry for help, a cry no one else could answer but a boy under the bridge. The boy's name was Eli, 14 years old, wiry, barefoot, with hair that curled into stubborn knots no comb had touched in years. To the city above, he was invisible, just another street child drifting through shadows. But to his father, he was all that was left of a broken life. They lived beneath the old iron bridge that groaned whenever trucks passed overhead. The space smelled of rust, engine oil, and smoke from the little fire they lit on cold nights. For Eli, this place was not shame, it was home. His father, Jonas, had once been known as one of the best mechanics in town. Back in the days when grease on his hands was a badge of honor, customers trusted him with their cars, and his small workshop buzzed with laughter and hammers. But a chain of bad luck and accident, hospital bills, debt, and finally eviction had dragged Jonas down until the bridge became his ceiling. Yet his gift never left him. Even here, with no garage, Jonas still worked magic with machines. Taxi drivers who could afford real shops came to him with sputtering engines. Truckers whispered his name when their brakes failed on long roads. He fixed them all with a touch that seemed half instinct, half miracle. Eli grew up at his side, watching, learning, while other boys played football on polished fields. Eli's games were carburetors and broken fan belts. His small fingers, quicker than his father's stiff ones, learned to twist wires, listen to engines, and understand their language. That morning, as he sat on the pile of tires, he heard the cry, anyone fix this damn problem?" The voice had thundered down the bridge walls, startling him. Eli froze, listening. It wasn't the normal anger of market men or drivers. This voice carried power, wealth, desperation, and strangely, it was asking for help. He slipped closer to the road above, peeking through the cracks where sunlight sliced into their world. From there, he could see the sleek black Phantom parked proudly yet pathetically in silence, and the man pacing like a storm. Eli's heart thudded. That car, he had seen pictures of it in old magazines scavenged from trash. The Hyperion Phantom, a beast of engineering so rare only a handful existed in the world. And it was broken. Jonas noticed his son's distracted stare. He wiped sweat from his brow with a rag, his hands black with oil. "What are you looking at, boy?" Eli pointed. "The big man's car. It's dead. He's shouting for someone to fix it." Jonas followed his gaze, sighed, and shook his head. "That's none of our business. Let the rich fix their own toys." "But Papa," Eli whispered, eyes bright. "What if we can fix it?" Jonas laughed dryly, a sound carrying both pride and sadness. "That car is worth more than everything I've touched in my life. You think they'd let breed rats like us near it?" "Still," Eli pressed, his voice low but steady. "He cried for help. I heard it." Jonas paused, looking at his boy. He saw the same spark he once carried in his own youth, the belief that a mechanic's hands could heal any machine. He wanted to protect him from disappointment, but he also knew Eli's ears were sharp, his hands sharper. Sometimes a car needed more than wealth. Sometimes it needed someone who listened. Above them, Alexander's fury rose again, echoing down the road, and with it, Eli's resolve hardened. He wasn't just going to listen, he was going to answer. Eli's bare feet slapped lightly against the gravel road as he climbed out from under the bridge. His shirt was torn at the collar, and his trousers hung loosely, patched into many places to count. But none of that mattered. His heart was fixed on the silent beast of a car at the billionaire's side. From a distance, Alexander Vane looked like a statue carved from Angler's sharp suit, gold watch flashing, jaw clenched. His driver Hugo was still fumbling under the hood, pulling wires like a blind man in a maze. Security guards lingered nearby, uncertain whether to help or stay invisible. Eli's heart hammered, but his father's voice rang in his head. Sometimes, a car needs someone who listens. He stepped forward. "Sir," Eli called, his voice small against the intimidating guards. No one heard him, or maybe they ignored him. He tried again, louder this time. "Sir, I can help." That caught attention. The guards turned first, narrowing their eyes at the ragged boy standing before them. One stepped forward, waving a baton. "Hey, street rat, move away from here." Alexander barely glanced, his fury burning to hot. "What is it now?" "The boy, sir," the guard said with disgust. "One of those bridge children. He's trespassing." Eli swallowed his fear. He had one chance. "I can fix your car, sir." The words hung in the air. For a moment, silence fell. Then, Hugo burst into laughter, half disbelief, half insult. "Fix the Hyperion Phantom? You? Boy, this machine is more complicated than your entire life." The guards chuckled, ready to shove him back to the streets. But Alexander raised a hand, his pride, already bleeding from failure, caught on Eli's tone. There was no arrogance in the boy's voice, only certainty. "You?" Alexander said coldly. "What did you just say?" Eli straightened his thin shoulders. "I said I can fix it. Let me try." The driver scoffed. "Sir, don't waste time. This boy doesn't know a spark plug from a spoon." "Quiet, Hugo." Alexander's eyes narrowed at Eli. He studied the boy, the dirt on his face, the oil stains on his fingers, the raw hunger in his eyes. There was something unsettling there. Something real. "Tell me, boy," Alexander said slowly. "Why should I let a homeless child touch a car that costs more than the roof over your city?" Eli hesitated, then answered with the only truth he had. "Because no one else has fixed it yet." The words struck harder than he expected. Hugo flinched. Even Alexander blinked. For the first time that morning, silence wasn't from the car, but from the weight of a boy's audacity. The billionaire exhaled, then gestured. "Let him through." "Sir," the guard protested. "I said let him through." Up close, it was even more beautiful. Sleek curves, gleaming black paint, and an engine that seemed to breathe with pride even in its silence. Eli touched the hood gently, like one might touch the forehead of a sick friend. He closed his eyes, listening, and in the silence, he heard it. The faint ticking of a system trying and failing to connect. A whisper only someone who lived among broken machines would notice. Eli opened his eyes, determination burning. "I'll need some tools." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "Do you even know what tools to ask for?" Eli nodded once. "Yes, sir, but I'll need to use my hands first." Jonas's words echoed again. Sometimes, a car just needs someone who listens. And Eli was ready to listen. The guards whispered among themselves as Eli rolled up his sleeves. Hugo hovered with crossed arms, clearly waiting for the boy to fail so he could shove him out. Alexander stood back, silent, arms folded.
His piercing eyes fixed on every move. Eli bent over the hood.
He inhaled deeply the scent of heated metal.
Faint oil, and something else.
Something off. He brushed his fingers lightly across the engine's casing, the way one might feel the chest of a patient with fever. He murmured. What is it? Alexander asked sharply.
Eli didn't look up.
The car is breathing wrong.
Hugo nearly choked with laughter. Breathing?
This isn't a stray dog, boy. It's a Hyperion.
But Alexander raised a hand again.
Something in the boy's tone stilled him. Eli tilted his head, listening. His father had taught him that every machine had a rhythm, like a heartbeat. A healthy engine hummed steady.
But when something was wrong, the rhythm faltered. That was what he heard now, the broken song of a wounded beast.
He asked quietly, Do you have a small wrench and a flat screwdriver? One of the guards fetched them reluctantly.
Eli's small hands worked quickly, unscrewing a panel,
adjusting wires with precision that belied his age.
His fingers were gentle, careful not to tear or force.
What are you doing?
Hugo demanded. Listening, Eli said simply. He traced the wires, feeling the faint warmth. One section was colder, lifeless. He followed it to the ignition coil. He frowned. Someone installed the wrong connector here, Eli whispered. Alexander blinked. What?
The part looks perfect, Eli explained, but it doesn't match the Phantom's pulse. The connection slips every time you start it. That's why it coughs and dies.
Hugo shook his head violently.
Nonsense.
The Hyperion uses advanced systems beyond his understanding. Yet you haven't fixed it, Alexander said sharply. Eli gently tightened the wiring, then removed the connector with careful fingers.
He stripped a small piece of wire, twisted it,
and reattached it in a way only a mechanic who grew up mending dying taxis would think of. It wasn't elegant, but it was alive.
He stepped back. Try it now. They tightened. Alexander slid into the driver's seat. He pressed the start button.
The car hummed. For a moment, silence threatened again. Hugo smirked, ready to sneer.
And then,
vroom, the Phantom roared awake. A deep, thunderous growl filled the driveway, smooth and powerful like a lion rising from sleep. Its lights flared. The engine purred in perfect rhythm, steady and strong.
Eli's eyes lit up.
He had heard that sound in his dreams, the song of a healthy machine.
Alexander froze, his hands gripping the wheel.
Disbelief written across his face.
He revved it once more.
The car responded like a loyal steed, every note flawless. Hugo's jaw dropped.
The guards exchanged stunned looks.
And there, standing barefoot on the road with oil-stained hands and a torn shirt, was the boy who had done what no one else could. He fixed the billionaire's problem.
Alexander stepped out slowly. His gaze locked on Eli. For a long moment, he said nothing. The roar of the car filled the silence.
Then, in a voice louder and steadier than before, he asked, Who taught you this?
Eli swallowed. My father, sir. He's a mechanic.
We live under the bridge.
Something in Alexander's expression softened not pity,
but a flicker of respect.
He extended a hand, gold rings glinting in the sun. What's your name, boy? Eli, he said.
Alexander's lips curved into the faintest smile. Well, Eli,
today, you've done more than fix a car. You've fixed me. The boy blinked in confusion.
But Alexander's eyes carried
a depth only men
who had everything yet nothing understood. For the first time that morning, the billionaire no longer felt powerless. The Hyperion Phantom idled smoothly, its steady rhythm echoing like a heartbeat across the wide road.
The machine purred.
But all eyes were on Eli, the barefoot boy who had brought it back to life.
Alexander Vane studied him with an intensity that made Eli's palms sweat. He had expected anger, mockery, maybe even punishment for daring to touch such a priceless car. Instead, he saw something strange flicker in the billionaire's eyes, gratitude, and beneath it, a quiet wonder.
Hugo finally broke the silence, sputtering. Sir, it's a coincidence. Enough, Hugo, Alexander said sharply. His voice carried no anger now, only authority.
You had your chance. You failed.
This boy succeeded. Hugo bit his tongue, retreating into silence. Alexander turned back to Eli. Take me to your father.
Eli's breath caught. Sir, your father, Alexander repeated.
If he taught you this, I must meet him.
Moments later, a convoy of sleek cars rolled down the road,
led by the repaired Phantom, to a world Alexander had never bothered to notice.
The underbelly of his own city. The bridge loomed above, its iron ribs groaning as trucks thundered past. Beneath it sat Jonas, wiping grease from his hands. eyes widening as he saw his son approach with a billionaire at his side. Jonas scrambled up, wary.
Eli, what's this?
Eli grinned. Papa, I fixed his car. Jonas froze, his rag falling from his fingers. His gaze darted from the phantom to the suited man standing beside it. You fixed that? Alexander stepped forward. So you are the father? Jonas's back stiffened. Yes, sir. My boy gets ahead of himself sometimes. If he's caused you trouble, forgive him. Trouble? Alexander's laugh was low, surprising even himself. Your boy saved me. He has a gift, and I suspect he got it from you. Jonas blinked, unsure whether he was being mocked. I was a mechanic once, before life. His voice trailed off, heavy with shame. Alexander looked around the scattered tools, the oil-stained ground, the small fire pit. Then he looked back at Jonas. The world may have taken your shop, but it didn't take your skill. Your son just proved that. Jonas's eyes softened with pride as he glanced at Eli. The boy stood tall,
despite his ragged clothes,
glowing with the quiet joy of recognition. Alexander's tone shifted, decisive. Come with me, both of you. Jonas frowned. And go where? To my world, Alexander said. I have garages filled with cars. Teams of engineers who couldn't solve what your boy did in minutes. I need people like you, not just trained but gifted. Jonas hesitated. Life had taught him to distrust promises, especially from men in suits. Why us? Alexander looked at Eli, then back at Jonas, because sometimes the greatest solutions don't come from money or machines. They come from those who listen. Your son reminded me of that, and I don't want to forget again. Silence hung heavy under the bridge. Trucks rumbled above, pigeons fluttered, and somewhere in the distance, the city roared on. But here, in this forgotten corner, the lines between billionaire and homeless blurred. Eli tugged his father's sleeve. Papa, please. Jonas saw the hope in his boy's eyes, the hope he thought the streets had stolen long ago. Slowly, he nodded. Alexander extended his hand once more, this time to Jonas. After a pause, the mechanic clasped it. Oil-stained fingers creeping gold-ringed ones. Two worlds collided in that handshake. Within days, Jonas and Eli moved into a modest house near Alexander's estate. A workshop was built for Jonas, larger than anything he'd owned before. Eli was enrolled in school, but spent afternoons in the billionaire's garage, where engineers whispered about the barefoot boy who had humbled them all. The story spread how no one could fix the billionaire's problem until a homeless boy heard his cry. Newspapers twisted it into headlines, but Alexander knew the truth. It wasn't just the car that had been repaired that morning. It was his pride, his arrogance, his blindness to the world beneath his wealth. And every time he heard his phantom purr like a lion, Alexander remembered a cry for help had been answered not by riches, but by the hands of a boy who listened. Please subscribe, turn on your notification button, like and comment.